I am Linda. It started 3 days ago. I was still in my uniform, the ugly teal one with sparkle maids stitched over the pocket, when my phone buzzed in my apron. I thought it was Mrs. Lang asking me to come back because I missed a streak on her mirror. But no, it was Hollowford General. "Mrs. Linda Rowan?" the woman said, voice flat like she was reading off a form. "Are you responsible for paying the $14,800 balance for patient Talia Rowan?" $14,800. I stopped dead in that hospital hallway, mop water dripping off my shoes, bleach still burning my nose. People pushed past me with their balloons and flowers, and there I was, still smelling like somebody else's toilet bowl. Talia had the baby, my first grandchild, and nobody told me she was even in labor. I walked to the nursery window on legs that didn't feel like mine. There she was, tiny, red, mouth open like a baby bird, wrapped in a blanket so white it hurt to look at. And next to her, a little card, Rowan Hargrove Girl. Like my name was just tacked on as an afterthought. I stood there until a nurse tapped my shoulder. "Ma'am, the billing office needs confirmation. Mr. Rowan, your son, listed you as the financially responsible party." I laughed. Couldn't help it. It came out rough, like I'd swallowed gravel. Me, the woman who raised him on canned ravioli in double shifts, the woman who scrubbed other people's kitchens so he could be the first Rowan to go to college. I was the emergency wallet now. I told them no, plain and simple. "That bill belongs to my son and his wife." The lady behind the desk looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Ma'am, are you sure?" "Sure? Honey, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I left before Jonas even knew I'd been there." Welcome to the Stories of Auntie Maya. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked my video. Drop a comment down below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I read every single comment, and it helps me to know I'm not alone in this. This city, Hollowford, it's gray all the time. Even when the sun comes out, the smoke from the factories just turns it the color of dishwater. I've lived here 47 years, buried my Tommy here when Jonas was 7. Tommy coughed his lungs out working the line at the steel plant, left me with a 7-year-old and a mortgage and a promise I'd get our boy out. I did. God help me, I did. Jonas used to fall asleep on my chest while I folded laundry at 2 a.m., then whispering, "Mommy, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a big house with no stairs so your knees don't hurt." I'd kiss his sweaty little forehead and tell him all I needed was him. Then he met Talia. The wedding was held at something called Winding Creek Country Club. I practiced saying it in the car all the way there so I wouldn't stumble when I gave the valet my keys. Except there was no valet for people driving a 2009 Corolla with a dented fender. I had to park myself in the overflow lot behind the maintenance shed. I spent 2 whole paychecks on that navy dress at the consignment shop on 8th Street. It still had the original tags from some department store I'd never been inside. I thought I looked decent until I walked into the marble foyer and saw myself in the mirror next to all those tanned women in pastel silk. My shoes, polished that morning with a damp rag, were the same plain black flats I wore to clean houses. Talia's mother, Evelyn, glanced down at them and then away so fast you'd think she smelled something bad. "Linda, dear," she said, air kissing somewhere near my cheek without actually touching me. "We're so happy you could make it." The way she said it made it sound like she'd lost a bet. After the ceremony, under an arch of white roses that probably cost more than my car, everybody moved to the ballroom. I stood by the bar holding a glass of champagne I was scared to drink in case I spilled on myself. Jonas found me there, handsome in his tux, eyes shining. "Mom, you okay?" he whispered, squeezing my hand. Before I could answer, Talia appeared, glowing like something out of a magazine. She looped her arm through his and smiled at me with teeth too perfect to be real. "Linda," she said, sweet as syrup, "you must be exhausted after such a long drive. Why don't you sit with Aunt Ruth? She's from the East Side, too." Jonas laughed like it was a joke. I laughed, too, because that's what you do. 3 months later, they invited me to the new house for Sunday brunch. I wore my good slacks and the blouse I saved for parent-teacher nights, back when Jonas was little. The house sat up on Ridgeview like it was looking down on the whole city. Everything white and gold and echoing. Talia gave me the tour herself, heels clicking on floors that didn't have a single scuff mark. When we got to the laundry room, Lord, it was bigger than my entire trailer. She closed the door behind us real gentle, like she didn't want anyone else to hear. "Linda," she started, folding her pretty hands together, "Jonas is under so much pressure at the firm. The partners watch everything. When his phone rings during meetings and when it's you, it's a little distracting." I remember the washer humming behind her, one of those fancy front-load ones the size of a spaceship. "I only call if it's important," I said. My voice came out smaller than I meant. "Of course," she smiled again, "but maybe just text instead, or wait till after 6. It would mean the world to Jonas." She touched my arm like we were already friends. I nodded. "Anything for my boy?" She opened the door and the bright hallway light rushed in. "Perfect. Thank you, Linda. You're going to fit right in." I stood there a second longer, smelling lavender detergent and money, knowing I never would. I sent baby gifts when I found out she was pregnant. Little handmade blankets, the softest yarn I could afford. They came back 2 weeks later with a note. "Thank you, but it doesn't match the nursery palette." Palette. Like my love had the wrong color. So when that hospital lady asked me to pay $14,000 for a granddaughter, I didn't even get to hold. Something in me snapped clean in two. I drove home through the rain, windshield wipers slapping like they were mad at me too. Pulled into my cracked driveway, sat in the car till the windows fogged. My phone kept buzzing. Jonas, Jonas, Jonas. I let it go to voicemail. Then the hospital called again. "Mrs. Rowan," the woman said, softer this time, almost nervous. "Are you certain about refusing payment? Because if you don't cover it, we'll have to contact the Hargrove family directly." I closed my eyes, pictured Talia's parents with their perfect teeth and their summer house in Traverse City. Pictured them swooping in, paying the bill, holding it over my son's head for the rest of his life. Let them, I thought. Let the storm come. I hung up, walked inside, and for the first time in 25 years, I didn't take off my uniform, just sat down right here at this table with my cold tea, and I waited, because my dear, when you spend your whole life bending so people can walk all over you, one day you straighten up, and God help whoever's standing on your back when you do. I hadn't even kicked my shoes off yet. They were still soaked from mopping those hospital hallways all afternoon, squeaking every step I took toward the nursery window. My uniform clung to my back like a wet rag. The bleach smell stuck to my skin no matter how many times I washed my hands. I dropped my keys in the little ceramic dish by the door, the one Jonas painted for me in 3rd grade, all crooked hearts and best mom ever in blue bubble letters. And that's when the phone started screaming. Loud, angry rings that made my stomach flip. The screen said, "Jonas." Of course it was Jonas. I stood there in the doorway a second, bag still on my shoulder, heart thumping so hard I could feel it in my throat. I thought about letting it go to voicemail, let him cool off. But I've never been able to ignore my boy, not even now. So I answered on the 3rd ring, already bracing myself like I was walking into a cold wind. "Mom?" His voice came out tight, sharp, like he'd been practicing what to say and it still cut him on the way out. "What the hell are you doing?" I shut the door behind me with my hip and shuffled over to the kitchen counter, the same old Formica one with that black burn mark right in the corner, where he was 10 years old and decided he could make grilled cheese all by himself while I was at work. Came home to the smoke alarm screaming and him crying over a melted spatula. I leaned against it now, needing something solid under my hands. "Hello to you too, son," I said, trying to keep my voice soft, the way I used to when he fell off his bike and didn't want to cry in front of his friends. "Don't hello me, Mom, don't you dare." He was breathing hard like he'd been pacing. "The hospital just called Talia's dad, in tears, because you told them you're not paying the delivery bill. $14,000, Mom. $14,000. Who refuses to pay for their own grandchild's birth? I closed my eyes and saw that tiny baby again behind the glass, her little fists waving like she was already fighting the world. My granddaughter. And I didn't even get a phone call telling me she was coming. Jonas, I started, real quiet. Nobody told me Talia was in labor. Not you, not her, nobody. I found out when some lady in billing shouted my name across the hallway and asked me for money, while I was still holding a mop bucket. He made this frustrated sound, half growl, half sigh. That's not the point, Mom. The point is, you said no. You actually said no. I closed my eyes. There it was. The first hook, right through the ribs. Silence. Then Talia's voice, close enough that she had to be standing right behind him. Tell your mother she's making us look bad. Tell her now. I heard the shuffle, the phone switching ears. Do you know how embarrassing this is? He hissed. Talia's parents are ready to cover it, but they want to know why my own mother, why you, won't. They think we're charity cases because of you. My knees went weak. I slid down the cabinet until I was sitting on the linoleum, same spot I used to sit when he had nightmares and crawled into my bed at 3 a.m. Jonas, I said real quiet, when you were little, you used to wrap your arms around my neck so tight I couldn't breathe. You'd cry if I left the room. You promised you'd take care of me forever. He made a sound, half laugh, half groan. I was a kid. Yeah, and I was the mom who worked doubles so you could go to that fancy high school across town. Remember the Christmas I gave you a coat 2 sizes too big because it was on sale and I knew you'd grow into it? You wore it like it was armor. Mom, I sent that little yellow blanket when Talia was pregnant, the one I stayed up 3 weeks knitting. It came back with a note that it clashed with the nursery palette. My voice cracked on the last word. Palette. Like my love wasn't the right shade. Talia again, louder this time. Jonas, give me the phone. No, he snapped at her, then softer to me. I'm sorry about the blanket, okay? But this is different. This is our daughter. Our daughter. Not my granddaughter. Our. I stared at the cracked tile between my feet. You put me down as the one responsible for the bill, Jonas. Not Talia's daddy with the Rolex and the lake house. Me, the cleaning lady. He went real quiet. I could almost hear Talia breathing through the phone. Then he said it, low and ashamed and angry all at once. Why are you so poor you can't even pay for your grandchild's birth? The air left my lungs like someone punched me. I thought of the envelopes I hid in the lining of Tommy's old army jacket, the ones nobody knew about, not even Jonas. I thought of every party I wasn't invited to, every text that went unanswered, every time Talia's mother looked through me like I was glass. I thought of the whispers I pretended not to hear at the one baby shower they let me attend. Don't seat her near the silver. Make sure she uses the plastic cups. I swallowed every single one of those moments so my boy wouldn't have to choose between me and the life he wanted. And this was my thank you. Jonas, I said, voice steady now, do you know you're embarrassing me in front of my wife's family? He threw my own words back like a slap. Do you even care how this looks? I stood up slow, legs shaking. I care that my son thinks love comes with a price tag. Everything has a price tag, Mom. You taught me to work hard so I wouldn't end up... He stopped. Go ahead, baby. Say it. He didn't. But Talia did, cold and clear. Scrubbing toilets for the rest of your life. The line went dead. I stood there holding that silent phone until the screen went black and showed me my own face, tired, old, still smelling like bleach. Then Jonas's voice came back, one last time, like he couldn't help himself. What do you even have, Mom, besides a couple dollars from being a janitor? I opened my mouth, closed it. The truth sat heavy on my tongue, hot and sharp and 25 years in the making. But I said nothing. I just hung up, set the phone on the counter next to my cold tea, and listened to the factory horns blow in the distance. Let him think I'm broke. Let them all think it. For now. The morning after Jonas called me trash in my own kitchen, I woke up before the sun. Couldn't sleep anyway. The quiet was too loud. I made coffee, sat on the porch steps in my robe, watched the factory smoke crawl across the sky like it always does. That's when the black sedan pulled up, shiny, out of place on my cracked street. A man stepped out in a suit that probably cost more than my car. "Mrs. Linda Rowan?" He had kind eyes at least. "I'm Charles Whitmore, estate attorney. May I come in?" I almost laughed. Nobody in a suit had ever asked to come inside my house. I brought him to the kitchen table, same one where Jonas asked what I had besides janitor money. Mr. Whitmore opened his briefcase and took out a thick cream envelope. My name was typed on the front in Tommy's old typewriter font. My heart stopped. "He left instructions," the lawyer said gentle, "to deliver this personally when the account matured. 25 years today." My fingers went numb. I knew what it was before I even opened it. Tommy's just-in-case money. Back when the plant still had a pension, he took every bonus, every overtime check, and put it in some growth fund nobody understood. Told me one night while I rubbed his aching back, "Linda, if I go first, you live comfortable. Promise me you won't touch it till you have to." I promised. And I kept it. Even when the roof leaked, even when Jonas needed braces, even when I was eating cereal for dinner 3 nights a week. The lawyer slid the statement across the table. I looked at the final number and the room tilted. 7 figures. Not 6. 7. The papers slipped from my hands like they were on fire and scattered across the floor. I just stared at them, knees on the linoleum, breathing like I'd run a mile. Tommy never wanted Jonas to feel owed to that money. He wanted our boy hungry, not spoiled, so we kept quiet. And after Tommy died, keeping quiet got easy. Too easy. The lawyer helped me pick everything up, patient as a saint. That's when my front door banged open. Jonas stormed in, face red, Talia right behind him clutching the baby like a shield. The lawyer had called them too. Standard procedure, he said later. Jonas saw the papers in my shaking hands and froze. "Mom, what is this?" I couldn't speak yet. Just watched his eyes move down the page, watched the numbers hit him like punches. Confusion first, eyebrows knitting, then realization, then something darker. "You have," his voice cracked. "All this time?" Talia's gaze snapped to the statement, sharp as glass. Jonas stepped closer, voice rising. "You let me beg for scholarships? You cried when I said I couldn't afford books and you had millions sitting there?" "I had a promise," I said, barely a whisper. "A promise?" He laughed, ugly and broken. "You let me marry into that family thinking I came from nothing. You let them treat you like garbage and me like I dragged dirt into their house. And you were sitting on millions?" Talia's eyes never left the page. I saw her throat move when she swallowed. Jonas kept going, louder now. "You let me be humiliated for years, Mom. You let them look down on both of us when we didn't have to take a single dime from those people." I stood up slow. My knees popped like always. "I owe no one an explanation," I said, calm, clear. First time in years my voice didn't shake when I talked to him. The room went dead quiet except the baby fussing against Talia's shoulder. Jonas stared at me like he didn't know who I was. Talia shifted the baby to her other hip and finally spoke, voice smooth as ice. "Whose name is the money under, Linda?" There it was. The first real glimpse of what was coming. Jonas turned to her, startled, like he hadn't expected that question so fast. But I saw it land on him too. The shift. The second the money went from impossible to real, everything changed. I looked at my son, at the little boy who used to fall asleep on my chest, now standing in my kitchen with fury in his eyes because I'd kept him safe from being spoiled rotten. And I looked at Talia, clutching my granddaughter, already counting. Mr. Whitmore cleared his throat. "Everything is in Mrs. Rowan's name alone, as instructed." Talia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Jonas whispered, barely loud enough to hear, "Talia wants you to sign something, an inheritance document, for the baby. I felt it then. The target painted right between my shoulders. I folded Tommy's letter, slid it back into the envelope, and held it against my chest. The poor cleaning lady wasn't poor anymore, and God help me, that made me the most dangerous woman in the room. A week after the lawyer left my house, the invitation came. Thick cream card, gold border, Talia's handwriting, perfect as always. Linda, we'd love for you to join us for coffee tomorrow at 11. Just family. Just family. First time I'd been inside that house since the wedding. I almost threw the card in the trash, but something made me slip it into my purse instead. I wore the navy dress again, the one from the consignment shop, because it was the only nice thing I owned. Pulled my hair back, put on the tiny gold earrings Tommy gave me the Christmas before he died. When the cab dropped me at the gates, I had to wait while a man in a uniform checked a list before letting me through. The driveway curved like a river. Their house, mansion, sat there white and shining, too big for 3 people and a newborn. Every step on the marble porch echoed like a warning. Talia opened the door herself, baby on her hip, smiling like nothing had happened. Linda, come in. Jonas is changing her. We thought it'd be nice to talk. Nice? Sure. She led me through rooms that smelled like lemon polish and money, past the staircase that probably cost more than my whole trailer, into a sitting room with couches so pale I was scared to sit. I did anyway, on the very edge. Jonas came in carrying the baby, looking like he hadn't slept in days, dark circles, shoulders hunched. He kissed my cheek quick, then handed the baby to Talia like she was made of glass. Mom, he started, voice low, Talia and I, we just want what's best for the baby. Talia sat across from me, legs crossed perfect, and laid a leather folder on the coffee table between us. Linda, she said, soft as butter, you've been through so much, all those years working so hard, and now, well, God's blessed you, hasn't he? I didn't answer, just watched her. She opened that leather folder like she was unveiling a masterpiece. Inside, thick, creamy pages, all neat and official. Little colored, sticky arrows pointing exactly where my name was supposed to go. Sign here, initial there, like I was some employee handing over a paycheck. We thought, Talia said, voice dripping honey, since the money is just sitting there doing nothing, and it was always meant for family anyway, you could create a future fund for the baby, a proper trust. Jonas and I would be the trustees naturally. She gave a tiny laugh, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. That way we make sure every penny is used properly. Properly. The word hung in the air like smoke. I stared at the cover page glowing under the chandelier light. Rowan Hargrove Family Trust. My dead husband's blood and sweat in black ink, and their 2 names printed bigger than mine ever was. Jonas stood behind her chair, eyes fixed on the carpet pattern, like it might save him. Talia slid a heavy gold pen across the glass table. It made a soft scraping sound that felt louder than a gunshot. It's only fair, Linda, she murmured, leaning forward just enough for her perfume to reach me. After everything Jonas has been through, trying to fit in with our friends, our life, people still whisper about where he came from, about you. This would shut them up. This would finally give him the respect he deserves. My hand closed around that pen before I could stop it. Cold metal, real heavy, like it already knew what it wanted me to do. I lifted my eyes and looked straight at her. She smiled wider, perfect teeth, perfect everything, but her gaze skittered away the second it met mine, slid to the baby monitor, to the window, to Jonas, anywhere but me. That's when I knew for sure. She wasn't asking. She was taking. I set the pen down real slow, right in the center of those papers, and left it lying there like a line drawn in the sand. I'm not signing anything today, I said, calm as Sunday morning. Her smile twitched, just once, then froze solid. The air in that fancy sitting room turned ice cold the second the words left my mouth, like somebody cracked open a freezer and let winter spill out. Jonas made this choked little sound, half gasp, half scared puppy whine. Mom, Talia's perfect smile locked in place, but her eyes went dead. "Linda, be reasonable," she said, voice still soft, still pretending to be sweet. "This is for your granddaughter, for her future." I pushed myself up from that pale couch. My knees didn't shake, not once. "My granddaughter will have everything she needs," I told them, looking right at Talia, "when I decide she does, and not a minute before." Jonas finally lifted his head. His eyes were huge, pleading, like the little boy who used to beg me not to leave him at kindergarten. "Mom, please, just think about it. We can talk later." I looked at him standing there in his $1,000 shirt, hands twitching at his sides like he wanted to reach for me but didn't dare. My boy, my brave, loud, loving boy was gone. All that was left was this nervous shadow terrified of his own wife. I turned and walked to the door. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't need to. Behind me, Talia's voice floated out, sugar wrapped around a blade. "If you don't give, Linda, Jonas will no longer have a place in this house." I stopped dead, hand on the cold brass doorknob. The threat just hung there, pretty as poison and twice as deadly. Jonas whispered, so low I almost missed it, "Talia, don't—" But she cut him off sharp. She heard me. I didn't turn around. Didn't give them the satisfaction. I opened the door, stepped out into the bright sunshine, and walked down that long, white driveway like I owned it. The guard at the gate barely glanced up from his phone this time. I slid into the waiting cab, told the driver my address, and rolled the window all the way down. Warm wind hit my face, blowing my hair loose from its pins. In the rearview mirror, I saw Jonas in the big front window, just standing there, hands pressed against the glass. He didn't wave, didn't move. Talia stood behind him, arms crossed tight, mouth a thin, hard line. They thought they had me trapped. Thought poor old Linda, cleaning lady Linda, broke Linda would come crawling back the second they threatened my baby boy. Let them think that. The first real crack came at 2:03 in the morning, 3 weeks after I left their big white house with my head high. The phone lit up on the nightstand like a little blue fire, Jonas's name flashing over and over. I stared at it long enough to count 4 full rings, heart thumping hard, before I finally picked up. "Mom?" His voice came out raw, scraped thin, like he'd spent hours yelling or holding back screams. "You still awake?" I pushed myself up against the headboard, old bed springs groaning under me like they were complaining too. "I'm here, baby. Talk to me." He dragged in a shaky breath that crackled through the phone. Then, so low I had to press it tighter to my ear. "My wife's family. They're not what you think they are." I stayed quiet, just breathed with him. He couldn't hold it in anymore. The words spilled out messy and fast. "They keep spending, Mom. New couch that cost more than your car. Some ski trip to Aspen none of us even want. Talia ordered a bigger SUV last week because the old one looks middle class now. She says if we cut back even a little, people will notice. People will talk. So I'm working doubles, triples sometimes. I'm so damn tired I can't see straight. Today I almost dropped a full pallet on my own foot. Foreman grabbed me by the collar and sent me home before I killed myself or somebody else. I shut my eyes and saw him clear as day. My boy in those heavy steel-toed boots we bought together at the Army surplus. Eyes red and sunken, hands trembling on the forklift controls, while the factory lights buzzed overhead. "You still there?" he whispered, voice cracking. "I'm right here, Jonas," I said soft. "I'm listening." "Talia handling things okay with the baby?" I asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it from him. He let out a laugh that had nothing funny in it, cracked right down the middle. "Talia? She loses it the second the baby makes a sound, cries if the baby cries, screams if she won't stop. We got a nanny 2 days a week we can't even pay for, and yesterday Talia threw a full bottle across the kitchen because it wasn't the right temperature. Glass everywhere. She looked me dead in the eye and said, 'I didn't sign up to be a single mother while you work like a dog, Jonas. Like I'm out there choosing overtime for fun.'" I pressed the phone so tight to my ear it hurt. In the background, the baby was fussing, little hiccup cries, and then Talia's voice cut through sharp as a knife. For God's sake, just shut up already." Jonas's breathing hitched. "And her parents," he went on, voice splintering, "they don't even pretend to care how I'm holding up. Last Sunday dinner, her daddy leaned back in his chair, looked me up and down like I was something stuck to his shoe, and said real slow, 'We expected more upward movement by now, Jonas. Frankly, you're not quite meeting our standards.' Like I'm some company he invested in that's tanking." He stopped, swallowed hard enough I heard it click in his throat. "I'm killing myself for them, Mom, and I'm still not enough." Fast I felt that old mama bear pull right in the center of my chest, the same one that used to yank me out of bed when he had nightmares at 6 years old. I wanted to grab my keys, drive through the night, bust into that big house, scoop my boy up, bring him home, heat up chicken soup, and tuck him into his old twin bed so he could sleep for a solid week without anybody asking him for one more dime. But I swallowed it whole and stayed quiet. After a long minute, he whispered, voice small and broken, "I really thought if I just gave them everything they wanted, the cars, the vacations, the right address, they'd finally love me." He laughed once, wet and awful. "Turns out they only love what I can pay for." The line went dead still except for his ragged breathing and the baby whimpering somewhere far off. Lord, I wanted to say I told you so. Wanted to say pack a bag and come home right now. Instead, I said, real steady, "You gotta figure this one out yourself, Jonas." He started crying then, soft, ashamed sobs like he was trying to hide them in his sleeve. I listened until they slowed, until he sniffed hard, and the call ended with a click. I didn't sleep the rest of the night, just lay there staring at the ceiling fan going round and round. Next morning, I called Sparkle Maids. "I'm done," I told Shelley on the other end, "done scrubbing everybody else's messes." She sounded half shocked, half relieved. "Girl, we've been covering your houses anyway," she said. "You take care of you." I took the whole day and cleaned my own place like I was exorcising ghosts. Threw out the stack of birthday cards I never got, the ones I bought myself just in case he remembered. Dragged that old rocking chair from the front window, the one where I used to sit watching the road for his car, right out to the curb. Somebody picked it up before noon. Then I walked myself down to the community center and signed up for pottery. Tuesday and Thursday nights. First class, my hands shook so bad the clay spun off the wheel and smacked poor Mrs. Delgado square in the forehead. We laughed until we couldn't breathe, tears running down our faces, clay everywhere. I started sleeping 8 hours, started cooking real meals instead of cereal for supper, started looking in the mirror and smiling without forcing it. Jonas kept calling every few days, voice thinner each time. Talia screaming about the credit card bill. Her daddy icing him out at the club. Baby cutting teeth and nobody getting rest. I listened. Said, uh-huh. Said, that sounds hard, honey. Never once said, let me fix it. One Sunday, he showed up without warning, still in greasy factory coveralls, smelling like diesel in defeat. Stood on my porch looking 10 years older than 32. I think she's gonna leave me, he said, staring at his boots. Or kick me out. Same damn thing. I poured him coffee, black like he used to hate. We sat at my little table. You gonna let her? I asked. He kept his eyes on the steam curling up. I don't even know what I'm gonna do, Mom. I reached over and patted his rough hand once. Then you better start knowing. He stayed maybe an hour, didn't ask for money, didn't ask me to call Talia and smooth things over. Just stood at the door and hugged me so hard my ribs creaked, then walked back to his truck without looking back. That night I was elbow deep in clay, finally shaping a bowl that didn't look drunk, when the phone rang again. Jonas. But before he could speak, Talia's voice exploded in the background, close enough to shatter eardrums. Show me the damn inheritance papers, Jonas. Right now. If your mother won't help us, we'll find a way to make her. The line went dead. I stood there in my quiet kitchen, clay cracking on my knuckles, phone still hot against my palm. The second storm had arrived, and this time I wasn't opening the door to let it in. The night their whole pretty world finally shattered started with the sound of Crystal screaming 2 towns away. Jonas told me every detail later, voice still shaking. They were in that big kitchen with the marble island that cost more than my house. Talia had the inheritance papers spread out like a war map, colored tabs already stuck where signatures were supposed to go. She slapped the stack down in front of him and said, "Calm as ordering coffee. We're taking these to Daddy's lawyer first thing tomorrow. He'll handle it properly." Jonas stared at the pages. My name typed neat across the top. Tommy's name in the corner like a ghost. 25 years of overtime and skipped meals and quiet promises, all boiled down to black ink and dollar signs. Something in his chest cracked open. "No," he said. One word, plain, flat. First time in 8 years of marriage he ever told her no. Talia blinked once, like the word didn't compute. Then her hand whipped out, grabbed that heavy crystal tumbler, some fancy wedding gift from her aunt in Atlanta, and hurled it at the floor. It exploded into 1,000 sharp pieces that danced across the marble like wicked snow. "You owe me this life!" she screamed, face turning ugly red, veins popping in her neck. "The cars, the house, the club membership, everything I gave you when you came from nothing. You were nothing when I found you, Jonas." He stood there frozen, glass glittering around his shoes like broken ice. Nothing. Oh. Those 2 words hit him harder than any fist ever could. He told me later that right then he heard my voice clear as day from years back. "You gotta stand on your own, son." Talia kept raging, voice climbing higher. "I want joint signing rights on every single asset from your family, all of it. The trust, the accounts, whatever else that old woman is hiding. You will sign tonight, Jonas, or we are done." He lifted his eyes and looked at her. Really looked. Maybe for the first time since the wedding. Saw the mask slip clean off. "No," he said again, louder, stronger. "I won't." She switched gears fast. The screaming stopped like someone flipped a switch, and the tears came. Big, perfect, practiced tears rolling down her cheeks like she'd turned on a faucet. Those were the tears that always melted him before, the ones that got her the new handbag, the extra vacation, the bigger ring. She knew exactly how to use them. She snatched her phone off the counter, thumb already hitting speed dial. "Mommy, come now," she sobbed into it, voice trembling like a scared little girl. "He's being cruel." 10 minutes later, the front door opened and Evelyn Hargrove swept in, still in her tennis skirt and pearls even though it was past 9, cloud of Chanel and judgment thick enough to choke on. Evelyn didn't even look at the broken glass. She walked straight to Talia, wrapped an arm around her, and turned those cold blue eyes on Jonas. "You're poor," she said, slow and pitying, like she was talking to a slow child. "Poor and common. Be grateful my daughter lowered herself to marry you at all. Most men in your position would fall on their knees for this opportunity." Talia leaned into her mother, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand like some wounded princess. "Just sign the papers, Jonas," she whispered, voice sweet again now that she had backup. "Sign or get out, tonight." 2 women boxing him in, one on each side, voices soft and sharp at the same time, like velvet wrapped around knives. Jonas stood there in the middle of all that glittering wreckage, papers still waiting on the island, pen right beside them. He looked from his wife to his mother-in-law and back again. Then he stepped over the broken glass, careful, deliberate, and didn't touch the pen. Didn't sign a damn thing. Fast. He didn't pack a bag. Didn't grab his wallet or his phone charger or even a jacket. Just walked straight out that big front door in the same jeans and work shirt he'd worn all day, glass crunching under his boots, and left the whole shining lie behind him. His truck roared to life, and he drove the 23 minutes to my street like the devil was chasing him. I was sitting on the porch swing, rocking slow with a cup of chamomile, when those headlights sliced across the yard and stopped crooked in the driveway. The engine cut. Door slammed. Then he came up the steps slow, like everyone hurt. Looked like death warmed over twice, eyes hollowed out, hands trembling, black grease still ground into his knuckles from the plant. I stayed right where I was, tea warm in my hands, yellow porch light painting us both tired and old. He stopped at the top step, breathing hard. "Jonas," I said, real quiet, "tell me true. Are you standing on my porch tonight because you want your mother? Or because you need her money?" He flinched like the words were a slap across the face. Then his legs just gave out. He dropped hard to his knees on that faded welcome mat, same spot he used to collapse when he was 5 and came running home with bloody knees and tears. Forehead pressed against my leg, arms hanging loose at his sides. "Mom," he whispered, voice cracking wide open, raw as a fresh wound. "I just want to come back home. But God help me, I don't even know where to start." I set my tea down slow on the little side table, looked at my only child kneeling there in the dirt and the dark, shaking like a leaf, finally stripped of every pretty thing he thought would save him. That golden wall they built around him was nothing but rubble now, and my boy was on his knees in the middle of it, barefoot, bleeding, and finally looking up at me. He stayed down there on his knees a long, long time, forehead pressed hard against my knee, chest heaving like he'd run clear across the county. I let him stay right there. Let the night air cool the sweat on his neck. Let the crickets be the only sound. When the shaking finally eased into something smaller, I reached down, cupped his stubbled chin with my rough, cracked cleaner's hand, and lifted his face up to the porch light. "Get up now, Jonas," I said, voice low but steady. "Come inside before the neighbors start talking." He rose slow like his bones hurt, shoulders folded in so tight he looked half his size. He followed me through the screen door like he used to when he was 6 and scared of thunder, shuffling behind me across the same worn linoleum. I put the kettle on the burner, the same dented aluminum one that's been here since he was in diapers, the one he used to bang on with a spoon pretending it was a drum. Water hissed. I dropped chamomile in 2 mugs, 2 sugars in his because some things never change, none in mine because bitterness suits me these days. Set them on the table with a soft clunk and pushed his across the scarred wood. "Sit," I told him, "and talk, all of it, from the very first lie you swallowed." Lord, when he started talking, it poured out like poison, finally finding the cut. He started with that Christmas I saved 3 months to buy Talia a silk scarf from the nice store downtown, how she opened it, smiled that tight little smile, and later that night he heard her laughing in the kitchen with her friends saying, "It's sweet, really, but it's so Kmart." How he laughed too, loudest of all, just so nobody would think he came from people who shopped at Kmart. He told me about every fancy dinner where someone asked what his mother did, and he mumbled, "consulting," instead of saying I cleaned their toilets. How every new car, every club membership, every vacation felt like another layer of armor against the whispers that he came from trash. How he worked doubles until he couldn't see straight, so nobody could ever say he married her for money. "And the worst part," he whispered, voice cracking like thin ice, "was when they started calling you the help right to your face at that baby shower. You remember? You just smiled and kept passing the sandwiches. I didn't say a damn thing. I let them do it because standing up would have embarrassed my wife." He looked at me then, eyes shining with tears and shame. "I was protecting the wrong person, Mom. I was ashamed of being poor, Mom," he whispered, tears cutting clean paths through the grease on his cheeks. "Ashamed of you. I let her turn that shame into a chain, and I handed her the lock myself." I sipped my tea and listened. Didn't wipe his tears. Didn't reach for his hand. When he ran out of words, voice hoarse and broken, I set my mug down gentle. "If you want to rise again, son, you have to stand up on your own 2 feet. Not on my money. Not on Talia's daddy's money. Yours." He looked at me like I'd slapped him. "You won't help me?" "I'm helping you right now," I said. "I'm not giving you a dime. I'm not signing one paper. I'm giving you a chair, a cup of tea, and the truth you should have heard years ago. You must pay the price for your own silence, Jonas. Nobody can pay it for you." The clock ticked loud in the quiet. He stared into his tea a long time. Then he nodded, slow, like the weight finally settled where it belonged. "I have to go back," he said. "I have to face her. That's your first right choice in a long time." He stood up, wiped his face with his sleeve. Then he stopped at the door, voice small. "Mom, can I see the baby before I go? I left so fast I didn't even hold her tonight. I went to the drawer where I kept the spare key they'd given me months ago and never asked for back. Drove us both to their big house in silence. Talia wasn't home yet, probably still crying to her mother. The nursery nightlight painted everything soft pink. My granddaughter was asleep on her back, tiny fists by her ears. Jonas lifted her careful, like she might break, and brought her to me. First time I held her. She weighed nothing and everything, smelled like powder and milk and new life. Her little mouth made that sucking motion in her sleep, and something fierce and tender cracked open in my chest. Jonas watched us, eyes shining again for the first time in years. "I will do the right thing," he whispered, more to her than to me. "I swear it." I kissed her soft forehead, laid her back in the crib, and walked out without another word. He drove me home. We didn't speak. When he pulled up to my curb, he leaned over and kissed my cheek quick, like he used to when he was 10. "Thank you, Mom," he said. I watched his taillights disappear. Next morning, I was watering the porch flowers when a car I didn't know rolled slow into my driveway. Talia stepped out, still in yesterday's clothes, hair wild, eyes red and swollen, like she'd cried all night. She opened the back door and lifted the baby against her shoulder, blanket trailing. She walked up my steps slow, like each one hurt, and stood there clutching my granddaughter like a shield. I didn't move from the swing. She looked at me, lips trembling, and I couldn't tell if this was surrender or another trick. I was still rocking slow on that old porch swing, the chains creaking like they always do, when her white SUV came tearing up the street too fast. It jerked to a stop half on my grass. Driver door flung open before the engine even died. Talia stumbled out barefoot, shoes probably still scattered in her marble kitchen, clutching the baby so tight the little blanket dragged in the dirt behind her. She took maybe 4 steps up my cracked walkway before her knees just quit. She dropped hard onto the bottom concrete step, knees smacking loud enough I winced. The baby let out a sharp, startled cry, and Talia folded over her like she could hide inside that tiny body, whole frame shaking so violent her teeth clicked together. "Jonas left," she choked out, voice raw and shredded. "He really left me. I don't know how to be a mother, Linda. I never learned. I only learned how to look like one." I stayed right where I was, hands folded in my lap, swing moving gentle. She lifted her face then, and Lord, the queen of Ridgeview Drive was gone. Mascara ran in thick black rivers down her cheeks, lipstick smeared across her chin like a wound, hair falling out of its fancy twist in messy clumps. She looked 12 years old and terrified. "I have to control everything," she whispered, clutching the baby closer, rocking without rhythm, "because I'm so scared. Scared of being poor again. Scared people will look at me the way they looked at you, like I'm nothing. I'm scared if I loosen my grip even a little, Jonas will wake up and realize he married down, that I tricked him into loving a girl from a trailer park with lottery money and a good haircut." Her voice cracked on the last word, and the baby cried harder, little fists waving. Talia just kept rocking, tears dripping onto the blanket, whole body trembling like a leaf in a storm. "I thought if everything stayed perfect," she sobbed, "nobody would ever see where I really came from." The baby's wail climbed higher, sharp and desperate, cutting through the night. Talia rocked her all wrong, frantic, arms stiff like she was scared the child would slip right through them. No rhythm, no soothing, just panic in motion. "I grew up in a trailer too, Linda," she forced out between sobs, words breaking like cheap glass. East Side, off Route 30, same cracked linoleum, same roaches in the cereal box. Then Daddy hit the lottery when I was 12, and overnight we had marble floors and country club friends who never knew we used to eat mayonnaise sandwiches. I swore I'd never go back to that girl, never let anybody see the stains. So I learned how to smile pretty, how to talk right, how to keep every single thing perfect, because perfect keeps the past locked outside. She tried to laugh, but it came out wet and ugly, more cough than sound. Turns out, perfect just builds a taller wall, and nobody can climb in to love you. The baby kept screaming. Talia's whole body shook harder, shoulders folding in until she slid off the step completely. She landed hard on my faded welcome mat, knees pulled to her chest, face buried in the damp baby blanket, sobbing so deep it sounded like something inside her was tearing loose. I stayed on the swing, hands in my lap, rocking slow. Didn't reach for the child, didn't offer a tissue. This crack was hers to fall through. Headlights washed across the yard again, slower this time. Jonas's truck rolled to a stop behind hers. He must have driven those same 6 blocks 20 times, talking himself in and out of coming back. Engine cut. Door creaked. He stepped out with his hands shoved deep in his pockets, eyes flicking from Talia crumpled on the ground to me sitting quiet. I gave him nothing. Not a blink, not a nod. This wasn't my fight to referee. He walked over slow, boots heavy on the boards, and crouched in front of her like she was something wild that might bolt. "Talia," he said, voice soft, careful, the way you talk to a spooked horse. She lifted her head. No makeup left, no armor, just swollen red eyes and lips trembling so hard she could barely speak. They stared at each other a long breath, maybe 2. No speeches, no blame. Just the baby's cries echoing between them and the porch light showing every raw inch of their faces. Talia's voice came out tiny, almost swallowed by the crying. "If I let go," she whispered, tears dripping off her chin onto the blanket. "If I stop trying to control every damn thing, Jonas, would you still choose me?" He didn't answer fast, just looked at her, really looked. The same way he used to look up at me when the thunder got too loud and he needed to know I wasn't going anywhere. I held my breath. Crickets filled the quiet like a heartbeat. Everything balanced on whatever he said next. The night air was thick with baby cries and the smell of cut grass, and everything hung on what Jonas would say next. He looked at Talia, really looked. No anger left, just tired, raw honesty. Then his eyes flicked to me. Quick, like he was still 5 and needed permission to cross the street. I gave him the smallest nod. "Answer with your heart, son, not your fear." He turned back to her, crouched there on my porch boards like a man who'd finally run out of places to hide. "I choose you, Talia," he said, voice rough but steady. "I've always chosen you. But you gotta choose this family too. All of it. My mother, our daughter, the truth. You have to let go of trying to control everything. Let go of the inheritance. Let go of pretending we're something we're not. I love the girl from the trailer park just as much as the girl in the designer dress. Maybe more." Talia stared at him, mouth open a little, tears still falling. The baby's cries had quieted to hiccups against her chest. Silence stretched so long I could hear the swing chains creaking behind me. Then, slow as sunrise, Talia stood up. Her legs shook, but she stood. She walked the 2 steps to me and placed the baby, warm, heavy, perfect, right into my waiting arms. First time my granddaughter rested against my heart without a single wall between us. Talia's hands stayed on the baby a second longer, fingers brushing mine, then let go. "I don't know how to do that," she whispered, voice small but clear. "How to let go, but I want to try. I'm so tired of being scared." The baby rooted against my shoulder, let out one soft sigh and settled. That's when the spell cracked again, this time from a buzzing in Talia's pocket, angry and insistent like a hornet trapped against her hip. She fished the phone out with trembling fingers, glanced at the screen, and for one heartbeat, her old mask flickered back across her face, jaw tight, eyes narrow, Mommy flashing in big white letters. She thumbed accept before she could think better, then tapped speaker so the whole porch heard Evelyn Hargrove's voice cut through the dark like a shard of ice. "Talia Marie, enough of this nonsense," her mother snapped, sharp enough to draw blood. "You get in that car and bring my granddaughter home right this minute. This little tantrum has gone far enough. And tell that boy he can come crawling back the second he signs every paper we put in front of him. We are not losing everything because of his pride and that woman's greed." The words hung there, ugly and naked. Talia stood frozen, phone glowing in her hand. She looked at Jonas, shirt wrinkled, eyes red, arms still half open like he was scared to hope. Then she looked at me, rocking their daughter slow, the baby's tiny fist curled around my thumb. Then she looked down at the phone in her palm like it was something rotten. Her mother kept talking, voice climbing higher. "Talia, do you hear me? I said now." Talia's thumb hovered a second, shaking. Then she pressed end call so hard the screen cracked a little spider web in the corner. Without a word, she let the phone slip from her fingers. It hit the grass with a soft thud and stayed there, face up, still flashing missed call, missed call, missed call. She didn't pick it back up. She just lifted her chin, wiped her wet cheeks with the heel of her hand, and took one step closer to Jonas, choosing the cracked porch over the marble palace for the first time in 8 years. Fast silence again. Crickets. My heart beating against a tiny warm body. Jonas stood up slow. Talia stepped toward him. He opened his arms, careful like she might still run. She didn't. She walked straight into them and buried her face in his dirty work shirt, arms tight around his waist like she used to be the one afraid of losing him. I rocked the baby gentle, watching my son hold his wife while she cried the last of her armor away. For the first time in 8 years, my family was standing on the same side of the line. Then my own phone rang inside the house, shrill through the screen door. I knew who it was before I even moved, walked inside still holding the baby, picked it up on the 4th ring. "Mrs. Rowan," Mr. Whitmore said, calm as always. "I'm sorry to call so late, but the trust documents are ready for your final instructions. We need an official heir designated by tomorrow or the state will decide for you." I looked out the door at Jonas and Talia clinging to each other on my porch, at my granddaughter asleep against my chest. "Tell me, Mr. Whitmore," I said quiet, "who am I allowed to choose?" The night held its breath. The phone inside kept ringing, shrill and impatient, like it knew we were all balanced on a knife's edge. Jonas and Talia turned to me, still wrapped tight around each other, the baby finally quiet and warm against my chest. I eased her into Jonas's waiting arms, careful, like handing over something holy, and walked inside. The screen door slapped shut behind me. I picked up on the 5th ring. "Mrs. Rowan," Mr. Whitmore said, calm and professional. "The trust requires an official heir designation by midnight tonight. Who have you chosen?" I looked through the screen at my son on the porch steps, cradling his daughter while his wife leaned her head on his shoulder. The porch light painted them gold. For the first time in years, they looked small, young, real. The power had already flipped. Me, the woman they once hid in the kitchen, now holding every card. But winning wasn't the point anymore. "I choose not to give it to anyone," I said. A beat of silence. "I beg your pardon." "Make it an education fund for my granddaughter, only her name on it, locked tight. Not one penny touches anybody's hands, not mine, not her parents', nobody, until she's 18 and decides what kind of life she wants. College, trade school, art, whatever. Ironclad, Mr. Whitmore, bulletproof, no loopholes, no trustees, no early withdrawals. You understand me?" Another pause, then the soft scratch of his pen. "Perfectly. I'll have the paperwork ready first thing tomorrow." I hung up without saying goodbye and walked back out. Jonas sat on the bottom step now, Talia right beside him, the baby asleep against his chest. They looked up at me like two kids waiting to hear if they were in trouble or forgiven. It's done, I told them. The money belongs to her now, just her, locked away for her future. Nobody else gets a say. Jonas's face folded in on itself. He started crying, big, messy, shoulders-shaking sobs that made the baby stir. "Mom," he choked out, "you didn't choose me." I knelt right there in front of him, same spot he'd knelt in front of me the night before, and took both his rough hands in mine. "No, baby," I said soft. "I chose what you never could choose for yourself. A future that owes nothing to anyone. No chains, no shame, no price tags on your worth. That little girl will grow up knowing she's enough without a single zero behind her name." Talia watched us, eyes still swollen but shining clear now. She nodded once, slow, deep, like someone who'd just set down a 100-pound pack she'd carried for years. Relief looked good on her. The Hargrove family tried one last time. Evelyn rang Talia the very next morning, voice like a cracked whip. "You're throwing away everything we built for you. That money was supposed to be yours. Bring the baby and come home before you ruin her life, too." Talia listened for maybe 10 seconds, tears in her eyes but spine straight, then said quiet, "No, Mama? We're already home." She blocked the number, blocked them all, and never looked back. The invitations quit coming. The lake house keys got mailed back without a note. The country club ladies whispered behind their hands and then stopped whispering because we weren't there to hear it anymore. They washed their hands of the whole embarrassment. And for the first time in years, none of us cared one bit. 2 months later, the for sale sign went up on Ridgeview Drive. Jonas and Talia sold that big echoing house for less than they paid, just to be free of it. They found a little yellow rental 3 blocks from me, peeling paint, cracked sidewalk, backyard with a rusty swing set, and dandelions tall as your knee. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, linoleum floors that needed scrubbing every week. Heaven. Jonas kept his job at the plant, but told the foreman no more doubles. Came home at 4:30 like a regular man, grease still under his nails, kissing his daughter hello before he even washed up. Talia took a waitressing job at the diner on 8th. White sneakers, order pad, tips folded in her apron pocket. She came home smelling like coffee and bacon, hands red from carrying trays, and smiled bigger than I ever saw in that marble mansion. They fought sometimes, real fights, loud, doors slamming, but they laughed more, fixed their own leaky faucet with YouTube and cursing, and made love with the windows open like teenagers. Most afternoons I keep my granddaughter. She's walking now, toddling across my porch with Tommy's dark eyes and Jonas's crooked grin, grabbing my finger like it's the only rope in the world. She doesn't know a thing about country clubs or trust funds or what her last name used to open or close. All she knows is Grandma's lap and the way the factory smoke curls pink when the sun sets. I sit right here on this swing with her asleep against my chest and feel my days stretch out wide and free. No more counting what I owe or what's owed to me. No more measuring love in square footage or zeros. I'm just here, whole. You are only poor when you let others put a price on you. So if you're watching this and you've ever been pushed to the edge of your own family table, ever been told your hands are too rough or your wallet too thin to belong, tell your story. Leave it in the comments, send it to someone who needs to hear it, whisper it to yourself in the mirror. Someone out there is waiting for permission to stand up straight. Not everything is healed yet. We still flinch sometimes when the phone rings, still learning how to trust the quiet, but everything is finally in its rightful place. Messy, loud, scratched up, real, ours. One soft evening, Jonas came by alone after his shift, sat beside me on the swing while the baby napped inside. The sky was peach, and the crickets were warming up. "Mom," he said, voice shy like he was 10 again, "could you live with us for a while? Just till we get steady?" I looked down at my hands resting in my lap, the hands they once called cleaner's hands, rough and veined and strong. Then I felt it. My granddaughter's tiny palm slip into mine through the open window where she'd woken up, holding on like I was the safest place in the world. I squeezed her fingers gentle and smiled at my son, and for the first time in my whole life, I felt enough. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear they're enough too. Leave your own story below. Someone is waiting to feel less alone tonight. God bless you, darling.